The Grumpy Billionaire and the Terror Terrier. Barnaby Butterfield's grimace deepened at the sight of his own reflection in the desk's gleaming surface. Another day threatened to detonate behind his eyes. He worried at his tie, the silk noose already slack. The Bloomberg terminal pulsed crimson, a relentless ticker of the global markets he usually bent to his will. Today, however, the numbers were a muted thrum compared to the cacophony erupting across the room. "Captain Snuggles, desist this infernal din," he roared, his voice betraying its infrequent use outside of board meetings. The source of the infernal din, of course, was Captain Snuggles, charitably labeled a Brussels griffin. A walking, barking engine of destruction, his prominent underbite showcased a set of perpetually agitated teeth, and his eyes shone with impish delight. Today's masterpiece involved the utter annihilation of a custom-made dog bed, an alpaca wool extravagance. Fluff, shredded foam, and expensive threads now pirouetted through the air like some bizarre indoor blizzard. The captain, coated in the feathery fallout, yipped victoriously, a sound capable of shattering crystal. Barnaby massaged the bridge of his nose, the faint lavender scent of Mrs. Higgins' calming spray. A consistently defeated gesture offered scant relief. He tried everything: canine behaviorists, dog whisperers, even a shaman claiming fluency in the language of disgruntled pets. All had failed. Captain Snuggles remained a furry, four-legged despot, ruling Barnaby's existence with an iron will. He's dynamic. One particularly rattled animal psychologist had stammered before fleeing Butterfield Manor permanently. Barnaby's sigh was heavy. He held affection for the little beast in his own peculiar way. Snuggles was the singular constant, an entity impervious to his fortune or influence, seemingly reliant on him alone. But the constant upheaval was draining. He snatched up his phone, his thumb hovering over Ms. Albright's speed dial. He needed a diversion, something exorbitant, an idea as reckless as it was sudden, ignited in his thoughts. "Albright," he snapped into the phone as she answered, prompt as always. "I need a press release. Something impactful." "Naturally, Mr. Butterfield. Any particulars?" Her tone remained even, unflappable, a sharp contrast to the bedlam that engulfed Barnaby. "Yes," he replied, a mischievous spark now dancing in his eyes. "Announce a reward. $1 million. To the first person who can tame Captain Snuggles." A beat of silence hung in the air. Barnaby could practically hear Ms. Albright's mental gears grinding. $1 million, sir?" she queried, her voice a careful monotone. "Precisely, Albright. $1 million US. To the individual who demonstrably and permanently subdues Captain Snuggles. No cruel methods. Naturally. I want a solution, not animal cruelty. 1 month to achieve this miracle. Include all the customary legal safeguards, disclaimers, the works." "And, Albright." "Yes, Mr. Butterfield. Make it sound insurmountable. I want the world to understand just how challenging Captain Snuggles can be." He disconnected, a peculiar blend of trepidation and thrill twisting in his gut. He'd issued the challenge. He envisioned the world scoffing, dismissing it as another billionaire's whim. But deep within, a tiny ember of hope flickered. What if someone actually succeeded? What if peace could actually descend upon his turbulent existence? Meanwhile, Captain Snuggles, having decimated the alpaca wool, had now set his sights on Barnaby's Italian leather loafers, growling with pleasure as he worried the laces. He glanced up at Barnaby, cocking his head, a strip of leather clinging to his slobber-drenched muzzle. Barnaby returned the stare, a weary smile playing on his lips. Logically, he understood this was an insane gamble. But perhaps, just perhaps, it was exactly the kind of insanity he needed. The press release detonated online within hours. "Billionaire's bounty. $1 million reward for dog whisperer," one headline blared. "Is this the world's most indomitable canine?" another questioned. Social media erupted in memes, quips, and endless conjecture. Dog trainers across the globe clamored for the opportunity, drawn by the lure of immense wealth and the challenge of mastering the notorious Captain Snuggles. From the haven of his office, Barnaby watched the spectacle unfold, a tumbler of aged scotch warming his hand. The external pandemonium mirrored the turmoil within. He steeled himself, knowing the next month would be a marathon of mayhem. He cast a glance at Captain Snuggles, now scaling the drapes, a low rumble vibrating in his chest. "Godspeed to them," Barnaby murmured, swallowing a generous sip of scotch. "They'll certainly require it." Lily's special connection. Lily Chun preferred the company of creatures with fur, feathers, or scales to the confusing world of people. Her bedroom, a haven painted a calming shade of seafoam green, was a testament to this. A meticulously organized terrarium housed Bartholomew, her leopard gecko, whose amber eyes seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Across the room, a spacious aviary chirped with the contented melodies of Pip and Squeak, her pair of budgies. And nestled in a plush dog bed lay Luna, a golden retriever with a perpetually wagging tail and an uncanny ability to sense Lily's moods. Lily understood animals. Their language was simple, honest, and devoid of the unspoken rules that tripped her up constantly. Humans, on the other hand, were a minefield of subtle cues, shifting expectations, and veiled meanings that she struggled to decipher. Today was particularly challenging. The school cafeteria, usually a cacophony of clattering trays and boisterous chatter, had been amplified tenfold by a visiting marching band. The relentless thud of the drums vibrated through her teeth, the brassy blare of the trumpets felt like needles in her ears, and the sheer volume of the collective noise threatened to overwhelm her senses. She'd retreated to the library, seeking refuge amongst the silent rows of books, the scent of aged paper a comforting balm to her frayed nerves. She sat curled in an oversized armchair, Luna's warm weight pressed against her side, grounding her. She ran a hand over Luna's soft fur, finding solace in the familiar texture. The librarian, Mrs. Peterson, a kind woman with perpetually rosy cheeks and a gentle smile, had discreetly placed a pair of noise-canceling headphones on the table beside her. Lily offered a small, grateful smile in return, then slipped them on. The sudden hush was a welcome relief. She picked up a book about animal behavior, drawn to the complex yet logical ways different species communicated and interacted. She was lost in a fascinating chapter about canine vocalizations when a flicker of movement on the nearby television screen caught her eye. It was Barnaby Butterfield, his face flushed, his tie askew, looking thoroughly exasperated. Behind him, a blur of white fur suggested chaos barely contained. Lily recognized the breed immediately, a Samoyed, known for their intelligence, energy, and, when bored, their penchant for mischief. $1 million. Butterfield was exclaiming, his voice strained. Anyone who can tame this beast, is welcome to it. The camera zoomed in on Captain Snuggles, who, in that very moment, proceeded to snatch Butterfield's toupee and gallop away with it, shaking it triumphantly. Lily watched, fascinated. The news anchor, barely suppressing a laugh, summarized the situation. A wealthy financier driven to the brink by his incorrigible dog, offering an exorbitant reward for a solution. The segment ended with a montage of Captain Snuggles' greatest hits, shredding newspapers, appending flower pots, and leading a pack of dachshunds on a merry chase through a formal garden. Lily felt a strange pull, a sense of connection to the unruly dog on the screen. She didn't see a beast. She saw a creature bursting with energy, clearly intelligent, and desperately in need of understanding. "He's misunderstood," she murmured to Luna, who thumped her tail in agreement. Mrs. Peterson, noticing Lily's interest, approached cautiously. "That's quite the story, isn't it, Lily? $1 million is a lot of money." Lily shrugged, her gaze still fixed on the screen, now displaying a replay of Captain Snuggles' toupee theft. "Money isn't everything." "True," Mrs. Peterson agreed. "But it could certainly help someone. He needs someone who understands him," Lily said, her voice barely a whisper. Mrs. Peterson tilted her head, studying Lily's earnest expression. "You think you could help him, Lily?" Lily considered the question carefully. The thought of facing the crowds, the noise, the sheer sensory overload that would undoubtedly surround Butterfield and his infamous dog was daunting. But the image of Captain Snuggles, a whirlwind of white fur and boundless energy, lingered in her mind. Maybe, she said finally, her voice gaining a little more confidence. I understand animals. Luna nudged her hand with her wet nose, as if offering encouragement. Lily looked down at her loyal companion, then back at the television screen. The challenge was immense, the obstacles formidable. But something about Captain Snuggles, something in his bright, mischievous eyes, resonated with her. She knew, with a certainty that surprised even herself, that she had to try. A mother's hesitation. The flyer for Captain Snuggles lay crumpled on the kitchen table, the canine's manic gaze almost piercing the paper. Lily's fingertip traced the rough texture of his depicted fur, her mind adrift. The familiar cadence of May washing dishes provided a usual sense of peace, yet today it echoed like a metronome, marking time until the question she dreaded. Inhaling deeply, Lily's voice emerged, fragile. Mom. May pivoted, a slight pucker creasing her forehead, her dark eyes a silent inquiry. Yes, Sweet Pea. Would it be possible to visit Barnaby's mansion? The request lingered, heavy with unspoken worries. May's hands paused amidst the suds. She recognized that tone, the delicate tendrils of hope clinging to Lily's words. It invariably heralded something significant, a challenge to their carefully maintained equilibrium. Barnaby's mansion? What for, love? May queried, drying her hands with meticulous care. Lily indicated the flyer. Captain Snuggles. I believe I might be able to offer assistance. May picked up the advertisement, her eyes scanning the chaotic portrait of the dog and the grand prize. She released a sigh, a sound freighted with concern. Lily, darling, you know I encourage your passions. But Barnaby's mansion, the potential for sensory overload is immense. You understand how such environments affect you. Her tone was gentle, infused with apprehension, yet Lily detected the underlying reluctance. Lily's shoulders slumped slightly. The mental image of the mansion arose. Swarms of people, strobing lights, a symphony of clamorous voices. The mere thought induced a crawling sensation on her skin. But then, envisioning Captain Snuggles, the stark fear etched upon his features, a wave of resolve surged through her. I'm aware, Mom. However, I possess a certain affinity, I suppose. The flyer mentioned his aversion to noise and unexpected touch. Those are sensitivities I share. Lily's voice strengthened, the words gaining momentum. Perhaps I could create a sense of security for him. May's expression softened, though the worry lines remained. She knew the depth of Lily's empathy, her attunement to the emotional states of animals. It was both a gift and a source of vulnerability. Beyond the noise, Lily, there's the sheer intensity. The odors, the light, the sheer mass of humanity. It's a lot. May approached and knelt beside Lily, enclosing her hands within her own. My concern is that you become overwhelmed. Lily squeezed May's hands, her gaze earnest. I anticipate it will be difficult, but I earnestly desire to try. I believe I can make a difference for him. She hesitated, searching for the precise phrasing. Animals, they offer unconditional acceptance. They perceive the essence of who you are. May gazed into her daughter's eyes, noting the unwavering conviction shining there. She understood that Lily's concern transcended the immediate situation of a distressed dog. It touched upon her own struggles to navigate a world often perceived as overly stimulating. Silence descended, broken only by the refrigerator's low thrum. May chewed her lip, balancing her trepidation against her daughter's impassioned plea. Protection meant providing stability, yet complete shelter risked stifling Lily's growth and potential. Finally, she sighed once more, a shift in tone suggesting both resignation and a glimmer of optimism. All right, she conceded softly. We'll go, but at a measured pace. And should it prove too much, we'll depart immediately. Agree. Lily's face illuminated, a radiant smile eclipsing the shadows of anxiety. "Thank you, Mom." She embraced May tightly. May reciprocated, her heart brimming with love and trepidation. She recognized the inherent risks involved, a venture into uncharted territory. However, observing the spark of hope within Lily's eyes, she couldn't deny her the opportunity. Ultimately, perhaps Lily could indeed effect change, not only for Captain Snuggles, but for herself as well. The concept was a fragile bud of hope taking root within the fertile landscape of maternal affection. The mansion of mayhem. The wrought iron gates, easily 20 feet tall, loomed before them, glinting under the unforgiving afternoon sun. May hesitated, the sheer ostentation of it all, a physical weight in the air. Lily, however, was already tugging at her hand, her small face alight with anticipation, oblivious or perhaps immune to the oppressive display of wealth. A uniformed guard, looking vaguely uncomfortable in his braided jacket and epaulettes, scrutinized them from his booth before reluctantly waving them through. The driveway, a seemingly endless expanse of meticulously manicured gravel, crunched under the wheels of May's sensible sedan, a stark contrast to the gleaming sports cars parked haphazardly near the mansion's entrance. As they approached, the sounds intensified, a cacophony of barking, shouting, and what sounded suspiciously like a tuba. Lily squeezed May's hand tighter, her earlier enthusiasm wavering slightly. May gave her a reassuring smile, though her own stomach was churning with a mixture of anxiety and apprehension. The mansion itself was a monstrosity of architectural styles, a bizarre amalgamation of Gothic turrets, Roman columns, and what appeared to be a vaguely Egyptian facade. It looked less like a home and more like a theme park gone horribly wrong. Inside, chaos reigned supreme. A dozen or so people milled about, their faces etched with frustration and defeat. A woman in a tweed suit was attempting to soothe a snarling ball of white fur with a high-pitched voice, while a man in a yoga outfit tried a series of calming breaths, only to be met with a furious volley of barks. Another man, wielding a squeaky toy shaped like a rubber chicken, was being actively chased by the dog, who seemed determined to tear it to shreds. "Welcome," a voice boomed, cutting through the din. Barnaby Butterfield, a man whose face seemed permanently fixed in an expression of exasperated bewilderment, strode towards them, his perfectly tailored suit somehow rumpled despite its obvious expense. "You must be Lily and Mrs. Chun?" May nodded, extending a hand. "Yes, I'm May, and this is Lily." Barnaby gave May's hand a perfunctory shake, his eyes already darting back to the pandemonium unfolding around them. "As you can see, Captain Snuggles is uncooperative. We've had dog whisperers, animal psychologists, even a shaman. Nothing seems to work." He gestured vaguely at the assembled crowd of disgruntled contestants. "They've all failed miserably." Lily, who had been clinging to May's side, finally found her voice. "Where's Captain Snuggles?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Barnaby sighed dramatically. "He's contained. For the moment. We had to put him in the solarium. It's the only room with reinforced glass." As if on cue, a series of loud crashes emanated from somewhere within the mansion, followed by the unmistakable sound of shattering glass. Barnaby winced. Speaking of which, he led them through a labyrinth of hallways, each more garishly decorated than the last. The air was thick with the scent of expensive perfume, dog fur, and a faint undercurrent of something vaguely floral and artificial. Lily's eyes darted around, taking in every detail, her senses overloaded by the sheer excess of it all. She stumbled slightly, and May steadied her. Finally, they reached a set of double doors, behind which the sound of furious barking was deafening. Barnaby paused, taking a deep breath. "Prepare yourselves," he warned. "He's not exactly hospitable." He threw open the doors, revealing a solarium filled with overturned potted plants, shredded cushions, and shards of glass. In the center of the room, a small, fluffy white dog with disproportionately large teeth was tearing at a velvet throw pillow, his eyes blazing with unrestrained fury. He was the picture of adorable menace. This was Captain Snuggles, and he looked anything but snuggly, finding calm within the chaos. The Butterfield mansion was a symphony of jarring notes, not the kind Lily usually heard, the subtle frequencies of distress from a caged bird or the rhythmic thump of a rabbit's foot against a hutch floor. This was a human cacophony. Boisterous laughter ricocheted off marble floors. The clinking of champagne glasses punctuated every sentence, and snippets of conversations, each more extravagant than the last, swirled around her like a dizzying vortex. Lily felt a knot tighten in her stomach. The air, thick with the cloying sweetness of 100 different perfumes and a metallic tang of nervous sweat, pressed down on her. She gripped May's arm, her knuckles white. "Too much," she whispered, the words barely audible above the din. May squeezed her hand in return. "I know, Lily. Just breathe. We'll find a quiet corner." But there were no quiet corners. The mansion was a labyrinth of excess, each room overflowing with gaudy decorations, chattering guests, and the oppressive weight of Butterfield's wealth. Lily's senses felt assaulted from every direction. The flashing lights from the chandelier, the garish colors of the abstract art, the constant hum of voices. It was all too much. She felt a familiar panic rising, the urge to flee, to burrow herself back into the comforting predictability of her own room. Doubt gnawed at her. What had she been thinking? She couldn't do this. She wasn't like these people, these confident, loud, effortlessly social beings. She was a girl who found solace in the quiet company of animals, not the boisterous chaos of a billionaire's party. I can't," she stammered, pulling away from May. "I need to go." May's brow furrowed with concern, but before she could respond, a booming voice cut through the noise. "Ah, the prodigy has arrived. Barnaby Butterfield, a man whose presence somehow amplified the already overwhelming atmosphere, strode towards them, a forced smile plastered on his face. He was even larger than Lily had imagined, his tailored suit stretched taut across his considerable frame. He reeked of expensive cologne and an underlying current of desperation. "Lily, isn't it? And you must be May. Welcome, welcome. So glad you could make it. I'm simply dying to see what you can do with Captain Snuggles. He's been a bit of a handful, hasn't he?" He chuckled nervously, then clapped Lily on the shoulder, nearly sending her reeling. Lily flinched, recoiling from the unwanted touch. She wanted to disappear, to become invisible. She could feel her carefully constructed walls crumbling, her carefully managed anxiety threatening to overwhelm her completely. She closed her eyes, fighting back the rising tide of panic. She pictured her room, the familiar scent of lavender and old books, the soft glow of her bedside lamp. But even that image couldn't hold back the flood. Then a different image flashed in her mind, Captain Snuggles. Not the snarling, ferocious beast she'd seen on TV, but the brief glimpse of fear she'd caught in his eyes. The vulnerability hidden beneath the bluster. He was scared too. That thought, a tiny spark of empathy, flickered through the darkness. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the only one out of her depth. She took a shaky breath, focusing on the sensation of the air filling her lungs, then slowly releasing it. One breath at a time. That's what her therapist, Dr. Evans, always told her. She remembered Dr. Evans' words, "Find your anchor, Lily. When the storm rages, find your anchor." She focused on the feel of her feet planted firmly on the marble floor. She imagined roots growing from her toes, anchoring her to the earth. Slowly, deliberately, she began to count her breaths. Inhale, 2, 3, 4. Hold 2, 3. Exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With each breath, the noise seemed to recede. The lights dimmed, the pressure lessened. The anchor held. The anxiety didn't disappear completely, but became manageable, a dull ache rather than a crippling wave. She opened her eyes, focusing on May's concerned face. "I'm okay," she said, her voice still a little shaky, but firm. I can do this." Butterfield, oblivious to her inner turmoil, was still talking, his voice a relentless drone. Lily tuned him out, focusing instead on the image of Captain Snuggles, the scared dog who needed her help. She could do this. Not for Butterfield, Not for the $1 million prize, but for Captain Snuggles. And maybe, just maybe for herself. Understanding fear, not anger. Lily felt besieged by the chattering throng, a whirlwind of perfume and tinkling crystal. Her skin crawled, each snippet of conversation a jarring note against her nerves. Then she spotted him. Forget the rampaging beast from the news reports. Captain Snuggles wasn't shredding the floral arrangements or assaulting the chandelier. Instead, he was a colossal heap of fur tucked beneath a caviar-laden table, shaking like a leaf. He wasn't posturing, aggressive, but huddled inward, almost fetal. Lily threaded her way through the crowd, the clamor fading as her focus sharpened, replaced by the insistent drumbeat of her pulse. Elbows nudged her. Murmured apologies brushed past, unnoticed. Only the creature's distress mattered. She lowered herself, slow and deliberate, telegraphing her intentions with every movement. No reaching hands, no soothing words, just observation. Snuggles's breath came in ragged gasps, his eyes wide and unfocused. This wasn't rage. It was pure, unadulterated terror. The truth struck Lily like a physical blow. The stories, the headlines, the jokes, all of it missed the point. They saw a monster. She saw a frightened animal, lost in a sensory overload. She recalled a stray kitten she'd once rescued, shivering in a drain. Everyone else saw danger, feral savagery. Lily had recognized the plea in its eyes, the yearning for comfort. "He's just scared," she murmured, barely audible. Butterfield, alerted by the sudden hush surrounding Lily, shouldered his way forward. He glimpsed her kneeling near his dog, and a flicker of something indecipherable crossed his features. Concern? Frustration? Hope, perhaps? "Easy there, kid," he cautioned, his voice a low rasp. "He'll nail you." Lily remained fixed on Captain Snuggles. His fear pulsed through the air, an invisible wave that resonated with her own buried anxieties. This glittering spectacle, the relentless social pressure, the suffocating expectations, it was all too much for her as well. Lily inhaled deeply, recalling Dr. Anya's words, "Find your center, Lily. Find what anchors you." And there, amidst the swirling chaos, her anchor was empathy. She began to hum, not a song, precisely, but a wordless melody, a string of soft, resonant notes that vibrated in her ribcage. It was a sound she often made when feeling overwhelmed, a way to soothe her own jangled nerves. Accidentally, she discovered animals responded. Barely perceptible above the party's din, the humming carried a specific vibration, a frequency of calm. Keeping her gaze averted, she continued, steady and rhythmic, allowing the sound to envelop him. Gradually, almost imperceptibly, Snuggles's trembling subsided. His ears, plastered flat against his skull, twitched. A slight shift of weight. Butterfield watched, his skepticism giving way to something approaching wonder. The surrounding guests, sensing a change in the atmosphere, grew quiet. The clink of glasses faded to a whisper. The chatter died down. All eyes focused on Lily and the dog. She hummed on, unwavering, her heart a strange mix of anticipation and apprehension. This wasn't about winning some accolades or triumphing over doubters. It was about recognizing fear, not demonizing anger. It was about connecting with another creature on a plane beyond language. A palpable tension filled the air. Would Snuggles erupt? Would he retreat further into himself? Or would he, perhaps, find a sliver of solace amidst the storm? A moment of connection. A thrum resonated in Lily's core, echoing the frantic tattoo of her pulse. The chandelier's blaze, a riot of chattering voices, the crystalline tinkling of stemmed glasses, it all threatened to swallow her whole. But anchoring herself to Captain Snuggles, she conjured a pocket of tranquility amidst the surrounding bedlam. The dog, moments before a veritable whirlwind of teeth and fury, stilled. Hackles remained raised, eyes still skittish, yet the furious barks dissolved into a low, throaty grumble. His head canted, one ear flicking, as though puzzling out the strange bomb in the air. Lily continued her humming, a wordless serenade, a sonic caress that eased through the room. Eyes averted, lest she appear a threat, she felt the collective weight of countless stares, yet willed herself to ignore them, focusing solely on the creature before her. Slowly, tentatively, Captain Snuggles shifted a paw, then another. The guttural noise subsided. Still taut as a bowstring, the raw aggression seemed to ebb, replaced by a hesitant curiosity. He edged closer, sampling the air, nostrils working. The melange of perfume, perspiration, and pricey cologne receded, giving way to something different. Lily's essence, a clean, earthy aroma reminiscent of her beloved rain-washed garden. Another measured advance. Now, he was only a few feet distant. Lily could discern the whites around his irises, the minute shivers that rippled through his powerful physique. She caught his scent, a wild, musky tang that spoke of unfettered spaces and deep-seated apprehension. He halted again, gaze fixed on her face. Lily maintained her downward gaze, acutely aware of his presence, a palpable force akin to standing too near a down power line. She sustained her hum, a steady anchor in the swirling chaos. Then surprise. He dipped his head, nudging her hand with his snout. A shy, almost apologetic overture. Lily's breath caught. Deliberately, she elevated her hand, palm exposed, extending it to him in peace. He sniffed it warily, then offered a quick, skittish lick. The contact sent a shiver through her, a curious blend of trepidation and elation. She had never been in such close proximity to such a potent, unpredictable beast. Yet beneath the anxiety, a profound empathy bloomed. She understood his fear, his bewilderment, his yearning for reassurance. From his perch on the balcony overlooking the glittering ballroom, Barnaby Butterfield goggled. He had witnessed Captain Snuggles obliterate designer handbags, intimidate Olympic athletes, and send steely-nerved security personnel scurrying. He'd seen countless attempts at pacification, all culminating in utter disaster. And now, this wisp of a girl, with her hushed melody and modest demeanor, accomplished what no one else could. He lurched forward, knuckles bone-white, as he clutched the railing. The low susurrus of the assembled guests had faded, supplanted by an expectant silence. Even the orchestra had ceased playing, instruments stilled, faces turned toward the unfolding drama below. A flicker of something long dormant stirred within him. Hope. Could this be the turning point? Could this unassuming girl somehow manage to tame his beast? The notion was both exhilarating and deeply unsettling. If she were to succeed, what ramifications would that have for him? For his life, so meticulously crafted, so rigidly controlled? He observed as Lily gently stroked Captain Snuggles' head, her touch feather-light and reassuring. The dog yielded to her hand, his body loosening, the tension gradually seeping away. Butterfield felt an unfamiliar constriction in his chest. He was unaccustomed to emotions beyond the dull throb of habit and the occasional flare of pique. This felt fundamentally different, disconcerting, perplexing, and strangely magnetic. He longed to dismiss it, to explain it away as a quirk, a temporary lull. Yet he couldn't. He had seen the abject terror in Captain Snuggles' eyes, the very real dread that fueled his aggression. And he had witnessed that fear dissipate under Lily's soothing touch. With a sudden, unwelcome clarity, he understood that he had never truly known his dog. He had perceived him as a puzzle to be cracked, an obstacle to be circumvented. The possibility that Captain Snuggles might be suffering, that he might be as lost and afraid as himself, had never crossed his mind. The tableau of Lily and Captain Snuggles, an image of unexpected concord, served as a stinging reminder of his own solitude. He was surrounded by a sea of faces, yet utterly isolated. He possessed untold riches, yet nothing of genuine worth. He watched them, the girl and the dog, two unlikely spirits finding comfort in each other's company for what felt like an eternity. And for the first time in years, Barnaby Butterfield experienced a twinge of something very much like envy. The impossible achieved, The party's clamor dissolved, replaced by the gentle cadence of a tail's rhythmic tapping on the carpet's nap. Lily stole a glance. Captain Snuggles' massive head, usually held high with nervous energy, now rested on her leg, his dark eyes relaxed in hazy peace. A soft snuffle punctuated the air. It was genuine. The lavender emanating from her pulse point created a personal haven of tranquility. The cacophony of laughter and crystal against crystal faded into background noise. A sense of profound connection, a shared stillness, eclipsed the party's superficiality and the house's gilded confines. A lone bead of sweat traced a path down her temple, but she remained still. Then, the unexpected. The captain, still drifting in slumber, extended his tongue in a deliberate, unhurried lick. Not the frantic, anxious lapping she'd previously witnessed, but an expression of affection. A knot tightened in Lily's throat. She swallowed, fighting down emotion. It wasn't about the monetary reward, not anymore. It centered on this creature, this majestic, misunderstood animal who had discovered a moment of respite. It was the overwhelming gratitude of providing such comfort. With extreme care, Lily adjusted, leaning back against the ornate sofa. Captain Snuggles remained undisturbed. Instead, he burrowed closer, a warm, furry weight against her leg. He settled into a tight coil, his breathing deep and regular. She felt the subtle expansion and contraction of his ribcage. Up on the balcony, Barnaby Butterfield felt an unfamiliar pang in his chest. He watched, riveted, as the impossible scene unfolded. His dog, the snarling terror that sent staff fleeing and men scrambling, was now the picture of docile contentment, cradled against a girl who appeared no older than his niece. He noticed her hand, trembling slightly, resting lightly on the dog's flank. He saw the quiet fortitude in her expression, the palpable empathy she radiated. He felt inadequate. He pushed away from the railing and returned to the ballroom, the celebratory sounds suddenly jarring. He needed to reach her. He needed to express his gratitude. Properly. He noticed Jenkins near the bar, looking frantic as he dealt with a particularly demanding guest. "Jenkins," he snapped, his voice harsher than intended. Jenkins started, nearly losing his grip on a laden tray. "Sir." "The check. Its whereabouts." Jenkins blinked. "In the safe, sir, per your instruction." "Retrieve it. Immediately." He watched Jenkins hurry away, a strange mixture of impatience and anticipation churning within him. He'd never issued a check for $1 million. He'd certainly never felt this compelled to part with such a sum. When Jenkins returned, pale and breathless, presenting the oversized check in an absurdly large envelope, Barnaby snatched it, barely registering the butler's presence. He moved purposefully toward the sofa, navigating the clusters of guests who parted before him. He halted a few feet from Lily, his shadow falling across her and the slumbering dog. Lily glanced up, surprised. I don't want to rouse him," she murmured, her voice lost in the ambience. Lowering his voice with effort, Barnaby replied, "Of course. I understand." He felt self-conscious, ungainly. He hadn't experienced this feeling since his awkward teenage years. He offered the envelope. "This is yours. It's well earned." Lily's eyes widened as she stared at the check. The figure, 1,000,000, seemed to glimmer. I'm at a loss for words," she stammered. "Say you'll accept it," Barnaby urged, a touch of desperation coloring his tone. He needed her to take it. He needed to acknowledge, in some concrete manner, the incredible feat she had accomplished. And perhaps, he conceded inwardly, to believe in the existence of such profound kindness. "Thank you," Lily whispered, finally accepting the envelope. Their fingers brushed, a momentary contact that sent a surprising surge through him. "Thank you, Mr. Butterfield." Barnaby cleared his throat. "Please, call me Barnaby." After a pause, he added, almost as an aside, "And thank you, Lily, for everything." A sanctuary of kindness. Lily's gaze locked on the figures dancing on the check, a sum north of $1 million. It felt like bottling the sun, then condensing it into that single, fragile slip of paper. Mr. Butterfield, I'm speechless. He shifted, hands burrowing into his pockets. Barnaby, please. And you earned every last cent? A nervous cough punctuated the air. Though, should you prefer company shares? We could orchestrate something truly stratospheric. Lily's headshake sent her braid snapping against her cheek. No, thank you. The check is perfect as it is. Relief softened his features, almost pathetically. Good. So you'll deposit it. The check felt weighty in her grasp. The sheer potential shimmered, both a beacon and a blaring alarm. It sang with promise, yet thrummed with the heavy bass of responsibility. I will. Later that week, Barnaby found a letter, penned in unexpectedly elegant script. Not quite a thank you. It instead outlined Lily's vision for the windfall, an animal sanctuary, a refuge for creatures too skittish, too bruised, too much for easy adoption. A home for the shunned, the misjudged, the ones who growled and snapped because the world felt too sharp. Barnaby reread it, a knot tightening in his throat. He'd anticipated. Well, he hadn't known what to anticipate. A lavish upgrade? A secure future? This, however, resonated on a different plane entirely. Impulsively, he drove to the town's edge the following day, following Lily's sketch map. Far from opulent, the sanctuary was a humble collection of repurposed stables, painted in muted, tranquil hues. Above the entrance, a sign proclaimed, Havenwood, a sanctuary of kindness. The gentle chorus of goats, the soft murmur of doves, and distinctively, Captain Snuggles' bark drifted on the breeze. He spotted Lily in a paddock, kneeling, her hand extended toward a quivering, marmalade-colored cat. Her voice, a soothing balm, carried on the air a melody of comfort. Initially tense, the cat gradually yielded, its ears relaxing, its tail losing its rigid set. Barnaby watched, captivated. He understood, then, that Lily's dedication to Captain Snuggles transcended monetary gain. She possessed an empathy he lacked, a language of the heart that needed no translation. A wave of shame, acrid and bitter, crashed against the bulwark of his ego. When Lily finally noticed him, her surprise held no hint of animosity. Mr. Butterfield, Barnaby, what brings you here? He swallowed, feeling exposed and awkward. I wanted to see it, to witness what you've done with the money. Lily's smile was small but genuine, lighting her eyes. It's not just my money, Barnaby. It's for them. She swept her hand toward the animals, each a testament to both trauma and resilience. He volunteered the following week. Initially, his movements were clumsy, his instincts misfired, his presence a general impediment. Attempting to aid Lily in cleaning the goat pen, he inadvertently provoked the herd, who descended upon him, nibbling at his laces and nudging his knees. Lily extricated him, her laughter gentle as she shooed them off. Gradually, however, he adapted. He observed Lily, mirroring her composed manner, her tender touch, her quiet intuition. He learned to interpret the subtle cues of anxiety in the creatures, the flicker of an ear, the shallow breath, the drooping tail. He approached them with patience and reverence, offering an open hand, a soft word, a moment of stillness. Even Captain Snuggles became more approachable at the sanctuary. He was a changed dog, carefree and animated, bounding through the fields with Lily, his tail a blur of joyous motion. Barnaby observed them, a complex cocktail of envy and appreciation bubbling within him. He'd never witnessed Captain Snuggles so vibrant. One afternoon, Lily showed Barnaby the proper way to groom Captain Snuggles. She guided his hand, illustrating the soft, circular motions that the dog found so reassuring. As he brushed, Captain Snuggles nestled against him, a low purr of contentment resonating in his chest. Barnaby felt a connection, a spark of understanding that had long been dormant. He likes you, you know, Lily murmured, observing them. He simply needed you to understand him. Barnaby glanced at the dog, his gaze softening. I'm trying, he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. "I'm really trying." As months unfurled, the sanctuary blossomed. More and more animals sought refuge at Havenwood, drawn by its reputation as a sanctuary. Lily's innate connection with animals, coupled with Barnaby's burgeoning support and insight, forged a haven of tranquility and restoration. And Captain Snuggles? He was Lily's constant companion, a devoted shadow. They were an unlikely kinship, a sensitive soul fluent in the language of animals, and a formerly aggressive dog who simply craved to be heard. They chased each other through the fields, playing fetch with boundless energy, and shared peaceful moments under the spreading canopy of the ancient oak. Quite simply, they were kindred spirits,